He talks about the Khazarian Mafia and the Freemasons and, all this other stuff. The eschatology gets a little bit too much into that. And I go, this guy just isn't correct. Like, he doesn't really know what he's talking about. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but when you really watch all the content, it's just a lot of conspiracy slop. It's just a lot of schizo bait slop.
Nick Fuentes clearly has a political agenda. The guy's a smart guy, but some of his conclusions are clearly manufactured. He's not working from first principles. He's not working, I think, he's a pretty smart guy. And some of the things he says, some of the things he says is like, someone's paying you to say that. I don't know, okay, but I'm saying something going on with Nick.
Professor Jiang from Predictive History claims that Nick Fuentes is a Fed and that his opinions are manufactured because apparently a Chinese high school teacher who showed up out of nowhere is more reliable than an American nationalist who's been a public figure since 2015, banned from everything and hated by everyone on both the left and the right.
He's been very critical, and I've seen a lot of people push back, and also a lot of people like what he's saying, because he is a high school professor. He's not, I think he has a BA in English, but he's got a lot of this right, and he predicted the Iran war almost as accurately, or if not the same amount as you. What do you think about Jiang? Is he, some allegations that he's CCP, Mossad, or is he just a guy analyzing and trying to connect the dots?
Well, I don't know what he is. What I will say is this. I think that there is such an appetite for anybody that will talk about Israel and Jews that basically anybody that does is all of a sudden seen as credible. I've seen this happen over the past 3 years. Anybody that will talk about it, all of a sudden everybody's on board. But he's not really correct. So I don't know what he is as a guy, but he talks about the Khazarian Mafia and the Freemasons and, all this other stuff. The eschatology gets a little bit too much into that. And I go, this guy just isn't correct. Like, he doesn't really know what he's talking about. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but when you really watch all the content, it's just a lot of conspiracy slop. It's just a lot of schizo bait slop. And we got to be very careful that we are absolutely correct. Not just people that will acknowledge, yes, Israel controls the West. We need to know exactly who they are and what they're about and how they do it. And so once people start to go into, it's all a Jesuit, Khazarian, whatever thing.
If you look at the Epstein files, it's clear that we are run by secret societies. It's clear that the world is run by these individuals who have a lot of power. We don't know who they are, but they control the military. They control the national security apparatus. And these people, there are different names for these people. You can call them the Illuminati. And the Illuminati are composed of 3 major groups, okay? You have the Jesuits, who control the Vatican. You have the Sephardim Frankists, which control the modern state of Israel today. And you have the Freemasons, which control the national security apparatus of the United States. And they believe that Israel, this war in the Middle East, is key to the end times in creating heaven on earth. So it's almost like a script that they're following, even though it doesn't make any geopolitical sense, okay?
Then I go, that person's not really credible. They're either ignorant or they are some kind of op. So I'm not a huge fan, honestly.
In defense of my Asian brother, I think a lot of that has been misconstrued. It's not that he is trying to misdirect. I've seen so many of his lectures about eschatology, and he's specific that things like the Freemasons, things like the infiltration of Jews with the Jesuit order, the Khazarians, that it does go back to one thing. He doesn't try to misdirect people. He's saying things like the Freemasons are a subsect, the Illuminati is a subsect, and that Khazarians converted to Judaism, which, there's speculation, the DNA, it's hard to trace completely, but there's a lot of truth to the fact that when the Khazarian Empire fell, a lot of them did convert to Judaism. But it's not saying that these are the people to blame. The eschatology and the transformation of Judaism to become rabbinical Judaism, where the rabbis are at the top, where you have to go to rabbi court in order to even convert, that this does go back to the same eschatology and the fact that their Messiah is the Antichrist. So he's speaking about secret societies. He's speaking about things people consider to be conspiracy theories, but it's not misdirection. And I think that through clips, I think it could be misinterpreted.
Like I said, he's, I don't know that he's the worst in the world, but I think it's a lot of conspiracy crap, a lot of schizo crap. And I think that ultimately, the only people that really get it are, one, people like, Catholics, far-right types, because we recognize that It really is the Jews. It really, like, because that's what it comes down to. The Jews that put Christ on the cross are wayward, and now they're back in the Holy Land trying to undo what was done by Jesus, which is that the veil was split, the temple was destroyed, the Jews were expelled. They're trying to undo that work, piece by piece, return to the land, rebuild the temple, and then they want to have their Antichrist sit on the throne. And what makes it the Antichrist? Well, it's a worldly conquering Messiah. So to try to introduce like, oh, well, they're not real Jews, and oh, well, it's a Mason thing. Oh, well, it's the Frankists or whatever. It's the secret societies. I feel like that gets away from that continuity of this long story. That's why it's the Christians, or even Muslims for that matter, because they recognize Christ as a Messiah, who can maybe see the theological continuity with what happened years ago.
Professor Jiang on the rise of violent anti-Semitism. Witness the rise of Nick Fuentes. He is a smart and talented young man, but somehow doesn't know the difference between Zionism and Judaism. There is no difference between Zionism and Judaism. Sneeko thinks that he is a genius just because he is standing in front of a whiteboard. It gives him a sense of teacher-like authority. We know influencers were paid to say these things. Even if he wasn't bought, it's suspicious that he instantly calls him a fed instead of making a real point.
Everything you just said is exactly the same eschatology within Islam. We believe in the same exact thing. And it's not to misdirect, but it is true that these groups like the Freemasons and others, these are a subsect. And like even that the deviations are part of it. The Frankists are part. Jacob Frank was a Jew. And so the theory could be that, okay, because Jews are outnumbered, they infiltrate different groups in different countries under the guise of a secret society, really to support the same exact mission, which is to summon their Messiah, which we believe, me and you, is the Antichrist.
Yeah, I just think the Frankist thing is basically fake. I think the Khazar thing is totally fake. It's not that Jacob Frank wasn't real, it's just that he had no impact. The people that are doing this are not Frankists. They're not antinomian. They follow the law. Ben Shapiro is an Orthodox Jew. He's halakhic. He follows Jewish law. Frankism is based on the idea that you have to transgress the law. They're against the law. Chabad Lubavitch, they are also law followers too. So I just disagree, and I think that intentionally or unintentionally, it is misdirection, and that's my issue with it.
Okay.
That said, Professor Jiang actually predicted the Iran war before it happened and was talking about it for a long time, so I personally have no issue with him. His lectures are genuinely easy to understand and well explained. Honestly, I wish I had a professor like him in school who actually made learning interesting instead of boring. I was watching his game theory breakdown, and even if you already know most of the concepts, the way he teaches makes everything digestible and engaging.